Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Unfound Now, the monthly series where I take time to look at a recent disappearance. This is a series that's been going on since the summer of 2020, and some of those disappearances that we've covered here on Unfound Now have ended up being solved, and in fact, a couple of the disappearances that we've covered on this series have ended up becoming actual podcast episodes for the podcast that I host called Unfound. Two of those that come to mind are Jason Landry and Bo Mann. As the title suggests, I'm going to be looking at the May 29th, 2024 disappearances of Nadia Cole, her boyfriend Eric Aung, and his 2-year-old daughter, Seraya. And this is a very unique type of disappearance in that the two adults here started off in different locations, but it is believed that they are now together along with this 2-year-old, and you might say that they are on the run. So I'm going to be analyzing all of that over the course of this episode. Now, you may be finding this video for the first time here on YouTube, and you maybe have never even heard of my podcast, Unfound, before. And by the way, I'm Ed Denzel, if anybody out there doesn't know that. And if this is your first time, allow me to tell you a little bit about the podcast. It's been around for almost 8 years. We'll be celebrating the 8-year anniversary in early September of 2024. Over the course of that time, I've featured almost 340 disappearances, and you can find Unfound. It comes out every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern on Spotify, iTunes, and all other very popular podcast applications. And it's a format in which I interview people who know the most about the disappearances. I record those interviews, and then you get to hear them, with the average length of a episode running about somewhere close probably to 2 hours, probably something like that. It's a longer type of true crime podcast than many people are used to, but that's just how I do things here. And the average age of a disappearance that is featured on the podcast that comes out every Friday is about 22 years old. So looking at a recent disappearance like the one I'm talking about today, fairly rare, but I've been doing this for 4 years now on this YouTube channel, the Unfound Podcast Channel on YouTube, and I do it monthly, generally at the end of the month, like we're doing here at the end of June of 2024. I also want to let any new people know that I have a discussion group on Facebook. You can find it. Just do a search for the Unfound Podcast Discussion Group. There's also a page there. You can also go to our website, theunfoundpodcast.com. A lot of media pictures and things like that you can find from all the disappearances that have been featured on Unfound over the past 8 years. And we also have sites on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and I think that may be about it. I might be missing one, but those are the major ones: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And once again, the website, theunfoundpodcast.com. And if you'd like to contact me, you can email me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. And I hope while you're listening to this, you will like, share, subscribe, recommend this channel, recommend the podcast to anybody you know who is interested in true crime, and true crime which is not sensationalized. We go after the facts. We stay away from the theories. In the end, I allow the audience. You're also very smart out there. You don't need to be spoon-fed theories. You can do that for yourselves. You come to Unfound because you're going to hear information, true information about disappearances that you will not hear anywhere else from anybody else. So, as with every Unfound Now, I start off with 3 learning points. You know that I am all about the learning. We're trying to learn as much as we can about disappearances so as to make them as rare as possible, and in the process, trying to solve as many disappearances as possible. And so I'm all about education, and many of you know I've spoken at some universities to criminal justice majors about disappearances. So the 3 learning points that we're going to talk about later in this episode are, number 1, the first danger. Number 2, strangers in a strange land, or the second danger. And number 3, the last danger. All of these learning points will be relevant to the disappearances of Nadia, Aaron, and Seraya. And when I get to those points later, I will be using examples from Unfound's own catalog of disappearances to explain what I mean, using those disappearances where I know a lot about them and compare and contrast to then help look at the disappearances that are being featured on this episode. What can we learn? Where are these 3? How can they be found alive? We want this to have a good outcome, of course. So first, I'm going to read a media story on the disappearances of these 3. Of course, there are many. We're about a month into their disappearances. Much has been made of their disappearances because it's got everybody's attention, especially since a 2-year-old girl is involved, but also because we have 2 adults in separate locations, totally different states, that somehow arranged to get together to do this. So I've just picked out one article, and I'll read it, and then we'll come back to those 3 learning points. Okay, here is the article. And I should tell you, in getting ready to do this episode, there really have been no new facts. We're a little over a month here. I'm recording this on June 30th of 2024. And there have been really a lot of theories out there, a lot of speculation, a lot of conjecture. But when we really come to facts, since this happened on May 29th, a month ago, really essentially nothing. So any news story I would read over the last month would be about the same. So here we go. A missing 21-year-old woman from Washington is possibly traveling with a man and his 2-year-old daughter, both of whom police are also searching for. Nadia Erica Cole, the woman who was last seen leaving an airport in SeaTac, Washington, is possibly traveling with the father of a 2-year-old, Seraya Aung Harmon, according to the Pullman Police Department. Police have issued an arrest warrant for Seraya's father, Aaron, of Moscow, Idaho. Coincidentally, Unfound covered a disappearance in Moscow, Idaho that happened way back, I think, in the 80s. And Aaron faces a charge for first-degree custodial interference. Surveillance footage last captured Cole on May 29th around 3 p.m., according to a missing person alert posted by the Fife Police Department. The alert says the recent Washington State University graduate, Erica, she has long blonde hair, green eyes, and is 5 feet 9 inches tall. Police are offering a $1,000 reward for information that leads to Cole's safe return, and are asked to call security services group Shepherd Shield at 877-220-8129. Continuing with this story, the child went on a Montana fishing trip with her father. Seraya was last seen with Aung on May 29th, according to the Pullman Police Department. The two reportedly traveled to Montana for a fishing trip, but the child was not returned to her mother on Monday for their scheduled custody exchange. By not appearing, Aaron Aung, 21 years old, has violated a parenting plan by the Latah County District Court. Police said Aung may be traveling with Cole, who was formerly a Pullman resident. Aung is also 5'9", weighs about 130 pounds, and has black hair and brown eyes. USA Today has reached out to the Pullman Police Department for further information. Anyone with information on Aung's or Seraya's whereabouts, of course, the young woman's whereabouts, is asked to contact the Pullman Police Department on their local law enforcement agency. Now, here is some, at least a couple additional pieces of information that are not in that story. Given that Nadia was last seen at University and 3rd walking towards the waterfront, that is actually her last location. So the story with her is that she was supposed to be going on a vacation. Nadia was supposed to be going on a vacation with her family. There at the airport, she makes up some excuse to leave the area where they're all waiting for a plane, and she just leaves the airport. And, of course, because of security, cameras, everything, they could follow her for a while, but eventually they lost her in this area of University and 3rd in Seattle. Now, to my knowledge, none of those cameras picked up Erin Aung in the area. There's nothing that I've heard regarding that. So it's not like she went out into the where you'd like get your luggage and then wait there for somebody to pick you up. She was there, and then he came and picked her up. That is seemingly not what happened. Just so we're clear on that. In addition, Nadia left her phone behind. So she was there with her family. The phone that she normally used, where her family could contact her, etc., she left it behind. She left it at the airport. She did not take it with her. And so the belief, this is conjecture, I don't think there's any proof to support this, but the belief is that the three of them, Aaron, of course, has his car, which is a Cadillac, that the three of them could have been headed to Mexico. There very well could be something that he might have said to somebody, or maybe something on her phone that leads them in that direction, but there's nothing factually, just some theorizing. Well, hey, they're somewhere, so they think they took off, and as you can tell, this is a situation where Aaron had the custody of Seraya for the weekend, as it said. He was supposed to bring her back. He didn't. He took off. Now, what kind of relationship? I'm guessing that Nadia and he had some sort of romantic relationship, that they knew each other. Was she his new girlfriend or something? Had a little bit of a difficult time finding anything factual regarding that. But it is believed, since these two knew each other, that he came and picked her up in the state of Washington from Montana, and the three, including the child, they went somewhere. All right, so now let's go back and take a look at those learning points for these kinds of disappearances, and then I will give a little bit of analysis at the end, although I'm going to tell you right in these 3 learning points, I'm going to give you a lot of analysis right in those, and maybe I don't have to wait till the end. And before I get into this, please remember to share this, like this, subscribe to this channel. I have a Patreon account, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. You could greatly help the podcast out if you were to become a member there. Or here on YouTube, you can hit the join button below and contribute that way as well. You'll get some things that other people do not. All right, let's start with the first danger. We have covered a disappearance kind of like this one, but it goes back to New York City in the 1970s, and those were the disappearances of Judy Brown and Richard Riesenberg. They were in some kind of psychiatric hospital, but you should know Richard Riesenberg was a murderer. He murdered his wife and his children, or just child. I think it was just one child. He murdered his wife and his child, and he actually successfully used a insanity defense, diminished capacity, and so he wasn't put in a hardcore penitentiary. He was in this, I don't want to call it a halfway house, but it certainly wasn't, like I said, somewhere where it was really hardcore. But he ended up meeting Judy Brown there, and they became lovers. And then they went missing. I think the year was 1977. And it's pretty much accepted, and this is a disappearance that Unfound just featured within the last year and a half, that Judy went willingly with him. So you can see the comparison here. that you have Richard Riesenberg, who's the bad guy. He's the one who's broken the law. And he gets Judy to go with him. And I don't say this because I'm, I guess women can take men, lead men away too, of course. But that is certainly not what happened here. And certainly we don't believe that happened with Nadia and Aaron either. Aaron certainly is the person who wanted to get away because he didn't like the child custody setup, obviously. And so Judy, going back to the disappearance that I'm talking about from the 1970s with Richard and Judy. And so what is the first danger? The first danger is that this is not, for Nadia, an equal partnership of some type. Okay, we have to remember that. This is something that's very risky. This was certainly something that certainly was not Nadia's idea, just like I don't believe it was Judy Brown's idea back in the 1970s. Like I said, I'm not saying women can't plan these things and take guys with them. But in these situations, comparing and contrasting, we have to believe that Aaron was the one that planned this all out. But Nadia has to realize, and I realize she may get to listen to this somewhere, but this is all about learning for the rest of us because we know these kind of custody issues, a parent taking off with a child and disappearing, somewhat common in the United States. But this is the first danger is it's not equal. These are not what we might call partners in crime. Nadia has not done anything wrong. It's Aaron that's done something wrong. And he's the one, should they get caught, he's the one who is going to get in big trouble for this. Nadia, for her, as long as she doesn't do anything illegal on the run, no knocking over convenience stores like Bonnie and Clyde or something, she'll come back to her family, and this will be something that 10, 15, 20 years down the road, I'm not saying they'll laugh about it, but it'll be like, wow, really dodged a bullet there. We're lucky you came back alive. But for Aaron, this is big trouble. This is absolutely big trouble. And so that is the first danger in a situation like this. And you never know how this is going to go. What ends up, they have this plan together. He plans it out that everybody has a plan until they enact it. And then the world starts to work on that plan and you have to improvise. And I just wonder how the improvisation has gone over the past month. Has it gone the way they planned or the way Aaron planned? This is the first danger. Those first few days into a month, when you chart something like this out, what if it doesn't go the way you planned? And this would be much more dangerous for Nadia than it would be for Aaron and Seraya. Now, we've covered, granted, Unfound has covered some disappearances where children were seemingly taken with adults. I had Dub and Chance Wackerhagen, but that is unclear. There's a murder, an unsolved murder that's connected to this, and it very well may be that the people or person who murdered this woman also murdered Dub and Chance. Although there's another thinking that the father, Dub, killed this woman, then he and Chance took off. You can go find that episode, listen to it for yourself, see what you think. We had Natasha and Susan Carter from West Virginia. This was recently solved. This happened back in 2000. It turned out that Susan did not take Natasha and take off. It turns out that the guy in Susan's life, her new husband, who was much older than she was, actually ended up murdering both of them. He told everybody that she took Natasha and took off. That's not what happened. He killed both of them and buried them in the backyard there in Beckley, West Virginia. And then I have Leslie Allen and children who went down and started living with a guy, moved from, was it Indiana, Ohio, someplace like that, moved down to Tennessee into the southern United States somewhere, and she and the children were never seen again. And although it's not really applicable here, so we really haven't covered a ton of disappearances where children go missing with their parents or a parent. But still, I think Judy Brown and Richard Riesenberg's disappearances is probably the closest comparison. And we also can think about maybe a disappearance that Unfound is not yet covered. That would be Patricia Adkins, who went on vacation. Remember, would she work at a Honda plant? And she seemingly went on vacation with her boyfriend, who was married, and never came back. And this is kind of what I'm talking about here, is that one person in this scheme thinks it's equal, and the other person knows that it's not. It's the first danger in a situation like this. All right, so moving on. Number 2, strangers in a strange land, or the second danger. Now, I'll admit that this is just speculation, that they went to Mexico. If there is proof, I've not seen it. It's just a bunch of people talking that they suspect that this happened. And the second danger is choosing to go to another country, especially one that is so different in so many ways, Mexico, from the United States. Now, I will tell you what makes more sense to me, although common sense rarely ever plays a role in all of this. I think about, well, if they're in Washington anyway, why didn't they just go to Canada? It would be easier. I'm not saying it would be easy to get into Canada, but if they have a plan, maybe they already figured that out, or Aaron had the plan. Easier to blend in Canada than it would be in Mexico. And in fact, what we've learned, I think, over time, because a lot of these abduction scenarios do end up getting solved, that most of these people do stay in their own countries. Unless they're in the United States and they're originally from Canada or Mexico, then they go. Then let's say a mother takes off with a son, leaves the father behind, and if she's from Mexico or some other country south of the United States, that's where she and the child usually end up. However, if it's Americans who are born here, etc., and only know the English language, the odds, I think, are very, very high that those people will stay here and try to start new lives here under assumed names. But the second danger would be if they decided to go to Mexico. Maybe not as much Canada, but certainly Mexico. Of course, the language is different. The culture is different. Blending in is going to be very difficult. Work, the currency. In a perfect world, if you're looking to run off, you're going to be, and you need to leave the United States, you're going to be looking for a country that kind of goes in the same vein as the United States. Well, that would easily be Canada. Now, maybe if you have a passport and can get out of the country, then maybe you're thinking, if you only speak English, well, there's places you can go. England, Ireland, any place in the United Kingdom, you could go to Australia. But I don't think that happened here. But the second danger, getting back to that, is if they went to Mexico, then that is a huge danger. They're going to stick out. It's not going to be easy there. And we know what goes on down there, that Mexico is a much more dangerous country than Canada is. This is the second danger in all of this. And we do have some examples. I have one example, actually two examples that I know quite a bit about that we've featured on Unfound or Unfound Now. Tammy Arthur and Chad Peters, they were allegedly going to Laredo, Mexico, or Bruni, Mexico to work, and they were allegedly going back and forth, and then one day, just nobody ever, they and their car just completely disappeared. And the belief is they, as Americans, they were in Mexico when they went missing. And nobody has any idea what happened to them. It's two still unsolved disappearances. Also, I covered an Unfound Now from maybe back in 2022 from Luis Davia, who was in the United States, and he went to see family in Mexico and in his own car driving, and he went to see them, and he left, and he was driving back through Mexico to get into the United States, and he even called his family in the United States or friends saying, hey, I'm going to be back in the United States in no time. He was never seen again. Neither was his car. And then a disappearance that I've not yet covered, but I want to, certainly, I've already spoken to Kelly Gaskin's mother, although it's been a little while. I hope to cover the disappearances of Kelly Gaskins, Virginia Wood, and Irvin Williamson, who, as three Americans, seemingly went on a trip to Mexico and were never seen again. Their car is also missing. And this is a situation where Kelly and Virginia had lied to their families about what they were doing. And in fact, I think Virginia skipped school, going to a school, college, to a university to do this. And they were never seen again. So this is not a good choice. Whereas, try finding any disappearance of an American who went to Canada and went missing. You'd be hard-pressed to do that. So the second danger in all of this is if they really chose to go to Mexico, it was probably, if they couldn't fly out of the country, of course, if they can only drive somewhere, certainly, I of course wish they hadn't done this. I wish they wouldn't. But if you're going to try to blend in, the best place to try to do that is in the United States. I'm not condoning this behavior. What Aaron did was illegal. I hope he gets caught. I hope all three of them are found alive. But if this was the plan, they should have stayed in the United States. The second plan would be to go to Canada, get into there somehow. The worst choice is going to Mexico. And if they did that, then the odds of them being found alive, I think greatly are diminished. All right, let's go to the last danger. Going back to Judy Brown and Richard Riesenberg, there's something that is very striking about their disappearances. Remember, Richard Riesenberg was a murderer. Pretty sure Judy knew that. She went with him. There's no proof that he forced her to go. She chose to go with him. But the disconcerting thing about their disappearances is that there is some proof that Richard was alive for at least 20 years after those two took off. Whereas with Judy, there's no proof that she lived very much beyond that disappearance date back in the 1970s. And the way I remember it regarding Richard is he had contact with his lawyer from the trial that he was in for the murder, something like that. And maybe a letter or something was sent to the lawyer, and the lawyer really believed this was not a prank, that it was Richard or something like that. Really, and if you don't know, I'm usually very suspicious of and cynical about all this. But I remember the episode in interviewing a relative of Judy, and pretty much believing, I think Richard he was hiding out there somewhere, but there was no proof that Judy ever contacted anybody again. And so this is the last danger, and that is if, Nadia, if you can hear me, you come across this wherever you are, if things are going, I would urge you to, if you don't have the courage at this point to let everybody know where you and Aaron and Seraya are so this can all get sorted out, I get it. And you may be perfectly content where you are right now. But here is the last danger. Nadia, never. If you're thinking about leaving, things aren't going right, not the way you planned, things are tough, whatever's going on, do not let Aaron let you know that you're not happy with what's going on. Do not do that. Do not try to convince him to become public or come back from Mexico or Canada, wherever you are right now. Do not do that. Remember, he has everything to lose or maybe nothing to lose, depending on how you look at it. You are not a criminal, Nadia. You're not a criminal. He is. He is now a criminal. He has all the reasons to avoid the law, to avoid being found, because he doesn't want to go to jail. Who would? But you have the opportunity to come out of this and go back to living your life. I know it's going to be odd and difficult and awkward and everything else, but you can have a life. He cannot. And I'm telling you, the moment you let him know that you're not happy with what's going on, it's not going as planned or whatever else, you are going to be in danger. And this is the last danger, just in general, for these types of disappearances. When the person who didn't come up with a plan, the person who is innocent, the person who has gone along with it or whatever else, as soon as that person starts to show doubt, that person could easily become a victim. If you have the idea of choosing to leave, you leave. You figure out a way. Don't write anything down. Don't do any Google searches. Nothing. You do it all in your head. And then you leave. You're there one day. You're gone the next. You remember as much information about where Aaron and Seraya are, everything, and you find safety. Because talking to anybody out, you don't know who to trust at this point. Do not announce. This is the reason, having covered the disappearances of a lot of women, wives who went missing and their husbands surely caused their disappearances, I got to believe at least some of those were because the women said, you know what, I'm going to divorce you. I'm going to leave you. Women don't do that. Just leave. Just leave. Figure out, don't write anybody, don't call anybody, don't email anybody, nothing. You get out. You utter any sort of doubt to the spouse you have in your life that you're going to leave, you could end up dead. So this is the last danger in all of this. Now, it may not be dangerous for Nadia right now. Maybe completely content with what's going on, even though we know this is all wrong. We'll see how long that can last. It's been a month. We'll see. So this is a message not just to Nadia if she's listening, but all of you women out there. If you're in relationships that are abusive, whatever, do not announce it. Don't ask for opinions. Don't ask your friends for advice. Nothing. All in your head. Keep it all in your head. Figure it out in your head. Don't write anything. Don't type anything. Nothing. You just leave. If you do it any other way, you risk becoming a victim before you can even enact your plan to get out and start a brand new good life. Trust me on this. I've covered way too many disappearances like this. Now, my analysis is that we have to remember something. A lot of parents, now this is a unique situation, but it is unfortunate and sad how many parents steal their children from the other spouse and succeed in doing so. And neither the parent or the child is ever known to be anywhere again. And in fact, if of course the child is a 2-year-old like Seraya is, she could grow up not even knowing what her real name is. It's common. It's common. This happens way more than would be predicted. And I've been doing this for almost 8 years, and I've learned a lot in this past 8 years. It's shocking how many parents steal their children, disappear, never seen again. And although some of them, it might be some sort of suicide situation, parent takes the child and they go kill themselves or something. I happen to believe most of them, they do successfully figure something out. Now, as far as money, that would be the big thing. If you're going to run off like this, money is an issue. Now, they could have sold the car. It was a Cadillac. Maybe get some money from that, but that kind of money is only going to go so far if you don't have a job. Here's some more of a little more insight. My experience. It's amazing how family members of that parent who takes the child will help. Never, never, never underestimate that. So we start talking about, well, how are they living? What are they doing? What are they doing for money? What are they doing for food? I'm not saying they're at anybody in Aaron's family's house right now. But I think we find out enough that relatives in this situation, especially if they feel that Aaron was getting screwed over the custody or whatever, more than happy to help out surreptitiously. More than happy. A lot of mothers covering for their felony sons out there. Lots of them. So for Nadia's family, you should have somebody keeping an eye on Aaron's family. You know, what's going on. Police going to do that maybe for a while, but not forever. And in fact, this is my recommendation anytime I've talked to somebody in the situation, that best thing you could do, if you think that your wife took your son and are hiding out somewhere, the best thing to do is keep an eye on her family. So, because you don't think, it very well may be that Aaron never wants the mother of his child's family to see Seraya again, but you don't really think he made that same kind of commitment to his own family, do you? Probably not. And there's the flaw in a plan like this. And it's just amazing to me how I've learned over the last 8 years that a lot of people just don't think like that, not even private investigators who they run into this a lot. Just go stake out the missing person's family's house. And eventually, I think you'll get lucky. Because people make mistakes. No matter what plan you come up with, people make mistakes. We all make mistakes. And, of course, about Nadia's phone being left behind, there is the idea that she had a burner phone. I don't know if there's any proof of that. It would make sense. How were they communicating? Don't know. But what also, when you leave a phone behind, of course, I'm going to guess maybe it had some sort of code on it, that given that she's still missing a month later, obviously this phone has not been helpful in trying to find them, or at least her. Even though they would have access to all our accounts. We all know if somebody gets into our phone, they're going to be able to get into our Facebook account, our email, our Google Mail, and whatever else. Unless you have some sort of code on there. And we know sometimes you use these codes and you don't get the code right like 3 or 4 times, and then it's totally locked, and not even the FBI or the NSA can get into it. So maybe that's the situation with Nadia's. Maybe. Just have to keep in mind in situations like this where you have a lot of moving parts, 2 people in different locations, you have a child involved, a 2-year-old, you have a couple 21-year-olds, it's a custody situation, that people, there's so many moving parts that there's going to be mistakes that are made. There are going to be breadcrumbs. There are people who are going to talk. There are going to be, like going back to Aaron's family. Where are they? Maybe he has relatives in Mexico or Canada or somewhere. I don't know. But you got to keep an eye on all of them. Because they very well may have agreed that Aaron was getting screwed over in his custody arrangement. Surely that did not mean that they never want to see his 2-year-old daughter again. So that is some of my analysis, but it's still, I don't know how dangerous it is for Aaron and Seraya right now, but for Nadia, that's the big issue in my mind. She certainly was not the planner of this. 21-year-olds, what are you going to do? And got suckered into this. And she's not a criminal. She hasn't done anything wrong. I hope she remembers that she can come out of this clean. But like I said, Nadia, if you're listening to me, if you're having doubts about all this, do not express them to Aaron. Because he knows if he lets you go, you know where he is. And you will tell people. He will not let you leave voluntarily. You will have to go without telling him and get the heck out. I'm sure you're a very intelligent young woman. You can figure it out. You're happy. Your family will be ecstatic to see you. Please do not announce your departure, though. So that is my analysis for the disappearances of Nadia Cole, Aaron Aung, and his 2-year daughter Seraya. Went missing on May 29th, 2024 from 2 different locations, the Seattle airport and I guess Montana or someplace in Idaho. Of course, it's believed that he drove to the Seattle area and picked Nadia up, and then they went somewhere. So there you go. That is this month's, for June 2024, that is this month's Unfound Now, looking at a recent disappearance. And I will talk to you all again at the end of July. Thanks for listening. Give this video a thumbs up, like, subscribe, join a Patreon. I would appreciate it.